I've encountered this tendency toward what is often referred to as self-sabotage many, many, many dozens of hundreds of times with women that I've worked with over the last 15 years. And I've worked with almost 3,000 women in that time. So I have a lot of anecdata, if you will, to think through this. And I want to just share with you some of my thoughts on what I call the brat archetype in dieting and weight loss. It's this idea of what can I get away with and still lose weight? I think that's one of the origin moments of this brat archetype that rears her ugly head when we're trying to be good and trying to be virtuous and trying to achieve our goals. Maybe you've been eating clean all week, eating clean. You've gone for walks, you wore your weighted vest, you took your supplements, you drank the water, you skipped the wine. And then suddenly there's this little voice, a little whisper. It's kind of bratty, it's kind of bold, and it kind of says, I wonder if I can sneak in some chips or sneak in a handful of chocolate or sneak in a glass of wine. It's always sneaking. I don't know why we're sneaking. I mean, there's nothing to sneak around here, right? But this voice is your inner brat. And she's not necessarily here to ruin you. She's not here to sabotage you, but she is here to be heard. So let's talk about her. She is your inner brat. She is the brat archetype in dieting. She doesn't really want to be told what to do. Not by your trainer, not by your macro app, not by your nutritionist, not even by you. She wants freedom, not restriction. She really wants autonomy, not discipline. And she wants to feel like she's choosing, not being told what to do and not being punished. And here's the wild part. Here's what I've noticed very commonly is the brat shows up most when things are going well. When you're sticking to your plan, when you're in the rhythm, when you're starting to see some results. It's like success doesn't feel safe for her, and it feels like a setup. This brat part of you doesn't believe success is actually even available to you. Or if it is available, it's always fleeting or conditional or painful to maintain. She's seen you lose weight before and then gain it back. She's seen you follow a perfect plan only to fall off the wagon and feel ashamed and discouraged. And she's heard all your empty promises, all your declarations. This is my last diet. I'm doing it for real this time. I'm never eating carbs again. She's heard it all. And she was with you for a while. But after a certain amount of time of not succeeding, she starts to believe that success isn't actually for you. Let me just pause to remind you that this wouldn't exist in you if it weren't for the culture of dieting and weight loss and programs like this that encourage discipline and restriction. If that didn't exist, neither would the brat archetype. If you were simply a human being living your life and consuming food like every other animal in the animal kingdom, there would be no brat archetype. This isn't a defect of your character, it is a consequence of diet programming. Now, you all know I come down against restriction, calories, macros, some of this very modern constructed diet programming. And one of the big reasons I come down on it is because it is so counter to how we're meant to engage with food. And it also hinges on these concepts of discipline and willpower, which are utterly invented and don't exist in the context of eating inside of us. It is a construct. When I say it's a construct to exhibit willpower and discipline, what I mean is that doesn't naturally exist in us. There's no discipline inside our DNA around food. We have to invent it and harness this invisible power. And then when we feel like we haven't done it well enough, we take that on as a personal failing. And that is the origin story of the brat archetype. So now when things do start going well, when things are actually working, she doesn't believe it. She panics and she thinks this is definitely not going to last. And she's in some ways protecting you because she's like, I know we're going to be devastated when this crumbles again. And she thinks, let's just blow it now and get it over with. Let's just fail now. We're going to fail anyway. Let's just do it now. We don't sabotage because we're weak, but because we want to be in control of the collapse. If it's going to fall apart anyway, we'd rather be the one to tear it down than to watch it slip away. And that's actually not rebellion. It's not bratty. It's self-protection. We see it as defiance. What's wrong with me? It's simply a self-protection measure. So I want to reframe the brat as an ally to you. She's not immature. She's not undisciplined. She's wounded. She's the part of you that remembers all the times you tried your best and didn't get what you were promised. And she carries the grief of every time you regained weight, every rude comment your uncle made about how fat you were getting when you were 7 years old or whatever, every weigh-in that broke your heart. And when you try to restrict her again, she rises up like a teenager slamming her bedroom door. And the irony is she's not rebelling against the outside rules per se. She rebels against the ones that you bring in, the ones that you decide you want. So you can make a conscious decision to restrict calories, to restrict carbs, to exercise more. You can put rules around what foods you do or don't eat, when you do or don't eat. You can make these rules and she'll still say, you're not the boss of me. So what do we do with this brat archetype? Do we just let her run wild? Do we just throw our hands up in defeat against this brat and say, well, I'm powerless to her? No, but we definitely don't silence her. She's not going to respond well to being silenced. If you ignore her, she'll get louder. If you try to suppress her, she'll get stronger. If you try to shame her, she'll sulk. And we all know what it feels like to sulk. And then when you sulk, you find yourself in the pantry, swan diving into the Oreos, self-sabotage, right? Listen, I just want to absolve you of that personal identity statement. Oh, I always self-sabotage. No, you don't. That is objectively untrue. What do you mean you always self-sabotage? No, you don't. No, you don't. You go to work, you pay your bills, you take care of the family, you take your car for oil changes, you pay your taxes. You do not always self-sabotage. That is not true. We need to quit, first of all, anchoring to these identity statements. It's not helping you. But let's try to understand our brat archetype, okay? This brat is not trying to hurt you. She's trying to protect you from hope because she doesn't want you to get your heart broken again. Your hopes have been dashed because diet programming has set you up to constantly fail and fail and fail and fail. I don't have willpower. I'm not disciplined enough. I always self-sabotage. Now you're saying mean things about yourself. She doesn't want that for you. In order to quieten the brat archetype, understanding that the brat is trying to protect you from feeling badly about yourself. Again, your health journey, your weight loss journey must make space for freedom and trust. So the brat has nothing to rail against. So no structure, no willpower, no meal plan, no macro plan. We need room. We need room and space to build new beliefs and to rebuild trust. We have to rebuild belief that this time it can be different. Maybe for the first time ever, you have to prove to yourself that you can do it. So we need space to run the experiments so we can prove, oh, I can do this. I can have a sandwich. I can have a glass of wine. I can go away on a weekend trip with my friends. I can do these things. I'm not a self-saboteur. All of this stuff can peacefully coexist. In this way, we develop the belief that sustainable success is not only possible, but it's totally safe. It feels easy. It's available to me. Your brat doesn't feel like success is available to you and is protecting you from feeling that failure. Does that make sense? So the question I think about is, how do we work with the brat instead of against her? And how can we test the limits in a way that's actually productive and not harmful? So can we test the limits on our eating plan here, our health plan, weight loss plan, whatever the program, the thing is that you're doing? Can we test the limits in a way that's actually productive and helpful instead of harmful? So there's a lot of mental reprogramming that has to go on there. But once you realize your brat is not an enemy, you can unlock a whole new kind of power. You can actually succeed. I was thinking about other words to describe her, other aspects of the brat or alternative archetype. So let me know if any of these ring true for you. So let's just identify the qualities of the brat. Her core energy, she's impulsive, she's playful, she likes to have fun, she likes to get a little rowdy. Maybe she's a little attention seeking. She can be a little oppositional. Her motivations are to avoid discomfort, to maximize pleasure. This is the hedonic part of you, and I think you're hedonic. Whether you do or don't, I do believe humans are pleasure-seeking animals. We need to seek out pleasure in order to survive as a species. So the idea of harnessing willpower and discipline is so counter to what our DNA is programmed for. I honestly think the brat archetype in some levels is the most pure expression of the hedonic aspects of your DNA that you've been oppressing through dieting for your whole life. For your whole life. How does she act? Well, she's a brat, so she rolls her eyes at routines, at programs, at plans, at strictness. She hates being told what to do. She's always seeking the loophole, the shortcut. What can she get away with? And she likes to treat herself. I really identify with the brat. I wonder if you do too. So she might say, I've been so good this week. I deserve this whole pint of ice cream. Yeah, I deserve it. Another way I like to think about the brat, and I contemplated, is she the brat or is she the rebel? Or are they the same? Or are they different? So let's talk about the rebel archetype. So the rebel is more defiant, anti-authority, and values their autonomy. I think this is really crucial. The idea of autonomy, I factor autonomy into my weight loss program. I think autonomy is more important than like calories, quite frankly. Do you feel self-determined? Do you know why you're doing what you're doing? And is it aligning with your values? And can you do it on your own forever? Because if you're following some random macro plan, you're basically beholden to it. You can't extricate yourself from it. That's the opposite of autonomy. And you crave autonomy. That is a craving you have deep again in your DNA. And this is the rebel energy, right? The rebel's motivation is to preserve your freedom, your autonomy, and control, even if it means sabotaging progress. Whatever progress is. Progress, another topic for another podcast. What even is progress? Because you might say, why do I always self-sabotage before I can make any meaningful progress? And it's like, well, what progress are you measuring that to, first of all? The rebel rejects external structure and discipline and pushes back hard when she feels manipulated. Likes to test boundaries to prove that she's in charge. I decide. And may undermine routines out of principle. Oh, you want me to eat 30 grams of protein at every breakfast? Forget it. Watch me have a bowl of cereal. I do what I want. So the brat, the rebel, these are like the surface level saboteurs that they kind of act out when they feel constrained or micromanaged or deprived. But there are other archetypes I think that live underneath here. So let me just run through some of these other ones I came up with. We have the protector. Let's reframe this. So the protector's core energy is vigilance and defense and distrust. Protector's on high alert, trying to keep you safe from the emotional pain or the perceived threat of that feeling of failure, that bad feeling of failure. So the protector stops your momentum before you get too invested, tends to distrust when things are going well. This must resonate with you. This seems too easy. I hear that a lot in my weight loss program. This feels a little too easy. There's no way weight loss could feel this easy, for example. But also, let's say you are trying out keto and you're finally getting the hang of restricting all your carbohydrates. Well, the protector distrusts that, but you don't want to get your hopes up again, kind of saving you from the harder fall. Another archetype that lives in this family with the rebel and the brat and the protector is the skeptic. Utter disbelief, pessimism. This isn't for me. I can't do this. No, I never succeed. I don't succeed. That's not for me. That's for somebody else. That's the core energy of the skeptic. Their motivation is to avoid disappointment by reminding you that success is probably not possible for you. So don't even try. And this undermines your own progress. Kind of plays devil's advocate for you. Will say, see, you've tried everything before. See, proof. Everything fails for you. Proof. That works for other people, but not you. We have the wounded one, another archetype. I see this in almost every woman that I work with. Grief, exhaustion, trauma. I think about the harm of a lifetime of dieting. That's actual harm, physical harm. And then the emotional injury that's present when we chronically physically abuse ourselves for decades. The wounded one wants to preserve their dignity in failure. So they shut down the effort before it even gets hard. Like, forget it, I'm out. Clings to comfort. I think I hear this a lot with folks, like the comfort of staying stuck. Can you relate to that? I hear that from people, not in their words, but in the way they describe how they struggle to change. There's a comfort in where I am right now. And anything outside of here is actually scary because I'm wounded from a lifetime spent dieting. There's a vulnerability in trying again. I can't go through that again. Are you kidding me? I feel this a lot. I can't believe women my age will do another fat loss phase or another round of Gina Livy or another, I'm going to try again with Noom. I'm going to try again with Weight Watchers. I'm going to try again with my personal trainer's macro plan. Again? Another archetype is the cynic, kind of like the skeptic, but the cynic is more sarcastic and mistrusting of systems and solutions and is kind of giving things the side eye. I really actually kind of hope you have a little bit of cynicism. In this day and age, I think you need to have some cynicism because every time you open your phone, you're confronted with a weight loss approach that really is worthy of the side eye. The motivation to the cynic is to protect your pride, so prevent you from feeling foolish for believing in yet another method. The cynic might reject help and might doubt everyone and everything. I think the cynic is interesting because they don't even want to get started. They're kind of done. They're the most kind of done people I encounter. And whenever I encounter somebody on the phone who's got like cynic energy, it's like, wow, you are so done with dieting. I can't even get through to you. I love that for you. But what's next? What's your next step, right? Then there's like the guard. I think about all of these archetypes essentially as guarding us. So it's this gatekeeper, this protector, again, keeping your emotional system, your nervous system intact by avoiding the instability of fluctuations of in and out and up and down and on and off, right? That's very psychologically stressful to be cycling in and out of programs and cycling in and out of success and failure. So the guard puts up walls the moment you get excited or invested in some progress. It steers you away from the risk of the fall by removing hope. Like, don't get too excited. We've been here before. Anyway, these are all kind of parts, shall we say, of the Brat archetype. You might resonate with all of them or none of them or some of them. But let's talk about how to flip the script and hack the Brat. Make peace with the Brat. Let her help you rather than hurt you. So now that we've met all of this family of archetypes, what do we do with them? We don't want to ignore them. We don't want to shame them. We can't duct tape them to a metaphorical chair and hope that they don't interfere with our goals here. They will interfere. They're part of you. They're part of your programming. When I talk about helping women resolve diet programming, this is what I mean. Okay, this is what I mean when I talk about this. Like, yes, there's a diet culture, and diet culture is steeped in the beauty ideal. Like, you have to look a certain way in order to be worthy. And oh my God, there's a patriarchal link to that, and there's a racial link to that. The diet culture thing is very complex, actually. But when I'm talking about diet programming, the diet brain, the diet persona that you've taken on since you were probably a teenager, these archetypes, these beliefs, these behaviors are only in you because of diet programming. They wouldn't be so obvious if you weren't constantly trying to be hypervigilant with your food and your body, quite honestly. So it would be really nice if we could just get to the root cause of this and say, let's just stop being hypervigilant about food and body. That would be amazing if I could snap my fingers and suddenly you don't care so much about food and body. But I'm not going to do that. I know that. So instead, it's like, can we work with what we've got here? Like, here's the narrative you have going through your brain about your abilities to succeed and feel great in your body and have the results and outcomes you want and feel good about it. So the Brat is not an enemy. The Brat's just been miscast because she's not here to sabotage you. She's here to protect your freedom. So what if we honored that? What if we said, you're right, Brat, I don't really want to be trapped either. I don't want to live in a food prison either. I don't want to grind myself into dust just to lose 10 pounds and then have to be in maintenance mode for the rest of my life. Everything about that. I don't want that either, Brat. What if we partner with the Brat and gave her a job? She's the architect of sustainability. So instead of letting the Brat torch the whole plan, anchor to the Brat and say, let's test its durability. What is the durability of this plan? We need to poke at your routines, not to destroy them, but to pressure test them. This comes up all the time on my coaching calls. Listen, if you work with me in my 6-month metabolic mentorship and you work with me for 6 months and you're perfect for 6 whole months, that's a problem. We need to pressure test what happens when life happens. You go on vacation, something bad happens, you lose your job, you lose a loved one, you grieve, you struggle. We have to pressure test. The brat can help us poke holes in the potential for this thing to fail and then teach us how to persist. So the brat essentially helps you with sustainability because she helps you answer the question, can I actually keep doing this in real life even when I don't want to? Even when my brat archetype kicks in and says, no, I don't want to. Can I still keep doing this? Because if the answer to that is no, if your plan only works when the stars perfectly align and you're perfect and you're isolated and there's no outside forces and you're never tired and you're never emotional, you never had a bad night's sleep, you never have a hormone shift, you never have an argument with your husband. If your life is perfect and you're only able to be perfect on the plan when it's all lined up, well, then I think the brat is right to call you out on that. The brat ends up being your early warning system for diet burnout. Your brat archetype, you can leverage it to help you build a plan that's flexible, that allows for these little naughty, hedonic moments. And the brat is going to ensure that you're not holding on to something fragile. The brat's going to knock that out of your hand and shatter it to the ground. It can't be fragile. You need a plan that can bend without breaking. This is sustainable. Everything you've tried hasn't been sustainable because it was too fragile. So the brat's here to knock it out of your hand and say, what if it breaks? What now? I actually love the brat for this reason. The brat wants to get the biggest result with the smallest input, or the biggest result with maybe the easiest input, something like that. The brat wants it to feel like easy, no problem, pretty simple, so let's use that. I think about this idea of the minimum effective dose. What is the least amount of things I can do to just keep moving slightly forward? What is the smallest hinge that swings the biggest door? I have a lot of practices in my weight loss program that are exactly this. They're the foundational principles of my program. I teach them to my clients. Here's the foundations. I know this seems really simple, but go with me on this. There was a podcast series I did called The 8 Simple Rules, and that really gives it to you. There's 8 of them. Those are the anchor behaviors. They will move you forward while also feeling easy enough that the brat doesn't rear up to say, whoa, 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 hang on, you're going to fail. It's just too easy. Your brat's like, okay, this seems pretty easy. Your brat loves it because it doesn't mean she has to follow 14 rules and 9 trackers and 3 food lists and to feel like she's doing it right. She just has to find the little minimum effective dose of the thing that actually works and then test it in the context of your life, which is crazy. Life gets in the way. That's what life does. I sure hope it does. I really hope your life is getting in the way of your diet. Jeepers. She gets to play. She gets to play. She's like, okay, I got these little parameters now. Let's see what I can get away with in the context of these parameters. Basically, you have to give her the sandbox to play in. You might say, okay, brat, if you're so smart, show me how to make this easier. Show me how to make this joyful. Show me how I can treat myself. Show me how I can be naughty even and still get the results I want. I dare you. And she'll rise to the occasion. I really do think of this in terms of like responsibly indulging, because the brat just wants treats. She wants fun. She wants indulgence. She does not want a life of chicken breasts and sadness. So give her a role in your own pleasure strategy, the satisfaction. And don't pretend that indulgence doesn't matter to you. It does. You are a pleasure-seeking creature. You are not a disciplined animal. This really plays into the all or nothing mindset. You've heard people talk about this all the time, all or nothing. I'm either eating 0 Oreos or all the Oreos. There's a beautiful gray zone in between. It's this idea of how can I enjoy food without overdoing it on anything? That's honestly, parenthetically, how I've maintained my weight loss for 15 years. I don't go overboard on anything. So I'm like, sure, brat, knock yourself out. Have some red wine. Sure, brat, cheesecake. It doesn't matter. Anything's in play, brat. It's all in play. Have what you want. But I just never go overboard. So how can I indulge without going overboard? How can I have pleasure and satisfaction without wrecking my momentum or my sleep or my blood sugar? This might look like a little piece of chocolate after dinner. And I'm talking milk chocolate, okay? Because I get this question all the time. I like a little something sweet after dinner. Is it okay if I have something sweet after dinner? It's like, why wouldn't it be? Why wouldn't it be? Well, dieting tells you that that's a naughty thing, or the anti-sugar folks tell you the sugar's the devil. And I talked about sugar in a podcast episode, so go listen back to that one. But if you tell your brat she can never have something sweet after dinner again, well, guess what you're going to do? You're going to go and eat the whole pint of ice cream. Not because you're a defective human, but because humans crave autonomy, not discipline. Humans crave pleasure, not restriction. That's just true. And your brat archetype is the most pure expression of your DNA. And your diet brain is a freaking modern cultural construct. You're fighting against your ancient DNA every time you willpower yourself into following some plan. And that's so temporary. If you think you have some kind of defect because you don't have willpower, I've got great news for you. It doesn't exist. So cut yourself some slack. Maybe you're exploring your relationship with alcohol. So maybe it's not every night wine. Maybe it's Thursday, Friday, Saturday wine. Maybe you have days of the week where you do it. Maybe instead of bringing Oreos home from the grocery store, just in case you want a cookie, you actually take yourself out to the bakery and get a really nice cookie whenever you want it. Harness the brat to help you savor without sabotage. So she reminds you that joy and progress can peacefully coexist. And then you can peacefully coexist with food and your body for the first time ever by actually linking arms with your brat. And let her rebel against dieting, not against you. She's actually not rebelling against you. She's actually not sabotaging you. She's trying to show you, hey, all this dieting that you're doing, it's really fucking dumb. You should stop doing that. She's trying to just wave her arms around and get your attention. The problem isn't you. It's all the stuff you've been taught about what discipline and dieting, weight loss should look like. Let your brat kind of rise up against that. Like, pay attention to her, because I think she's trying to get your attention. She's not sabotaging your growth. She's protecting your integrity. And she's not rebelling against your health. She's rebelling against the lie that health means punishment. One of the things I push back on in my own bratty way is the idea of discipline. I don't want to be disciplined. I don't want to be disciplined. I'm so tired of being disciplined. I am exhausted from a lifetime of discipline. So when some 27-year-old personal trainer comes in and says, discipline is key, it's like, you don't know what you're talking about? Go away. I'm tired of discipline. I don't want to live a life of discipline, especially not around food and drink and social engagements. Like, I want to be involved in them in a fully sensory way. The smells, the tastes, the feelings. I want it all. I think that's where the brat comes from. Women our age are tired of being disciplined. Are you kidding me? Your brat is the guardian of your joy. And don't forget, the architect of your sustainability. She's actually been waiting for you to put her on the team. So next time you feel your brat kick up, bring her on in. What do you got to say, brat? I think it'd be really worthwhile to contemplate everything I've said here. And I really love reframing things for you. I do. I live to reframe because I just want freedom for you. I just want freedom for you so bad. Freedom from all this absolutely idiotic programming that you've been the target customer of. You've been basically powerless to for your whole life. And I just want you to kind of think what it could be like to feel free from that. I think the brat is trying to get you out of here. Like, let's go. Let's cut class. Like, that's how I think about her. So when my clients say anything in the realm of, ooh, self-sabotage, I get very curious about that. And I want you to get curious about that too. I want this to be actionable. So let's get into some brass tacks. This is ultimately what it comes down to is indulgence without going overboard. That's really what we want to get to here in order to harness the brat. So you don't have to earn anything, and you don't deserve it, and you don't have to ask permission or seek forgiveness. All this language, even sneak, I used that one earlier. I'm sneaking a bowl of M&Ms. Like, what do you mean you're sneaking it? Weird language. Why do we apply that language to food? I will say this until I keel over at this desk on this camera and die of old age at the age of 117, because that's how I plan to live. I don't know. We'll see. Nobody says that but adult women. Nobody says things like deserve or indulge or permission or forgive with respect to food except human adult women. It's only us. Men don't say it. Kids don't say it. Your dog doesn't say it. Nobody else says it. It's just us. That's so crazy to think about. Why do we have to deserve and earn and forgive food and indulgence? You're a hedonic creature. You deserve pleasure from jump. Your body, your DNA is wired to seek it out. It's not wired to avoid it at all costs in the name of discipline and willpower. That's why dieting is such an absolute bullshit, idiotic construct. And I'm using the word dieting as a blanket term for any kind of weight loss effort. The ones I really hate would be ones that involve tracking your food. Like, what? That's insanity. And that could be tracking your points in Weight Watchers, tracking your macros, tracking your calories. Insane. Anyway, we have been operating for years from a place of all or nothing thinking because we have this whole punishment, reward, earn, burn dichotomy going on at all times with food. So we either try to white knuckle it through every craving and then we end up feeling deprived and bitter and basically on the brink of a binge, or we just give in and say, F it. It's the F it's, right? We've all heard of a case of the F it's. F it. It doesn't matter anyway. I've had one Oreo. I might as well have 1,000 Oreos. It doesn't matter anyway. I always self-sabotage. And then we go crazy and then we say mean things about ourselves and we call ourselves names like disappointment, self-saboteur. And none of these things is true. None of these things helps you build trust in your body. None of these things feels peaceful. And I think that's the goal. That is my goal, is to help rebuild or build for the first time since you were a child, a relationship with food that doesn't feel like either a battlefield or a free-for-all. It's this effortlessness. My tagline on my website since the moment I built it 15 years ago is achieve an effortless relationship with food. And I just don't know if you believe you can have that, but I do, and so does your brat. She's like, yo, it doesn't have to be this hard. Let's have some fun. So let's draw a line between the idea of a reactive indulgence, the F-its, and a planned indulgence. This is kind of a tactic you can use, but I don't want it to feel too tactical because I do want you to live in the moment and have your food decisions in the moment like any other creature on planet Earth, except for human adult women. A planned indulgence is when you make a self-honoring choice. I call it a self-honoring choice. Self-honoring choice is, in this moment, what do I really want? And like, why? It's kind of based on a bit of value. Like, for example, an example I use often is you go for Easter dinner and your Aunt Mildred has made her world famous pecan pie, which is like 400 grams of sugar per slice. And you're trying to watch your carbs. So when Aunt Mildred serves you up a big sticky slab of pecan pie, you're like, no, Aunt Mildred, I'm on a diet. And this might be Aunt Mildred's last Easter. And she's crestfallen that you didn't want to eat her world famous pecan pie for the first time in your life. In that moment, the self-honoring choice is, Aunt Mildred, give me an extra big slab and put some ice cream on there too, baby. That's the self-honoring choice. I'm a human being having a lived experience, making food decisions in the moment and savoring it. And then stopping when you've gotten the full experience. Like, this was so good and I have half this slab of pecan pie because it's cloyingly sweet. And I had some of it and Aunt Mildred's happy and I'm happy and I don't need to eat the whole thing. And you put the fork down. There's no drama. There's no rebellion. There's no shame spiral. It's just pleasure to the boundary of pleasure, to the boundary of enoughness. I call that satisfaction, right? Satisfaction, the root word of the word satisfaction is sate, and the definition of the word sate is enough. So satiety, satisfaction. I've had enough pecan pie. Put the fork down. And that's, to me, that's the idea of the self-honoring choice, as opposed to the reactive indulgence, which is, I might as well have Aunt Mildred's pecan pie, and then I'll eat all the Easter candy when I get home, and then I'll probably just stay up too late and drink a whole bottle of wine, and I'll start again tomorrow on Monday. You get it. Like, we don't need to do that. You don't need me to tell you that that's dumb. You already know. It's just a reaction. It's not a choice, though. There's no choosing. There's no autonomy there. You are just blindly obeying the construct of the on the wagon, off the wagon paradigm, which was created by diet culture, which is just a couple generations old at this point. Like, it's a total modern cultural construct. It is not empowering. It is exhausting. So if you want to feel like you can indulge without going overboard, which as far as I'm concerned is what makes a weight loss program sustainable, then learn to choose into your indulgences rather than reacting against them. In this way, you'll rebuild trust with food. And When you stop trusting yourself around food, it's not just a mindset issue, it's actually a nervous system issue. Your body doesn't feel safe. The feeling of mistrust feels very unsafe inside your body. Like your body can only perceive a few feelings, right? Your nervous system doesn't have a really rich library of feelings to choose from. If you've ever seen the emotion wheel, the emotion wheel has all these emotions, these very complex and precise human emotions on the outside, but all the outside wheel emotions funnel into these like 7 basic fundamental emotions. And like your body can only perceive really some real feelings. So the feeling of mistrust or worry is like a scarcity feeling in your brain. Your nervous system really, really rails against a scarce feeling because we are wired for survival, and feeling scarce or nervous about food is a major red flag from a survival perspective. And your ancient DNA is like, whoa, something bad going on here with the food environment. When your nervous system is like constantly chronically trained to restriction and punishment and inconsistency and worry about food, it feels very unsafe. And if your body feels unsafe, you're going to have a hell of a time losing fat, because in an unsafe environment, the fuel that's in and on your body is absolute getaway fuel. It's essential, crucial for survival. Your body's going to kind of hang on to it extra tight, circle the wagons. We have to create safety. Now, I mentioned this as well in the 8 Simple Rules podcast series. Sending safe signals to your brain and body is one of the requirements of fat loss. How do we create this feeling of safety? You show your body, you demonstrate that you are allowed to eat and you're allowed to enjoy it. And there's more tomorrow. If you didn't get enough pecan pie today, there's going to be leftover tomorrow. Nothing terrible happens when you have a glass of wine or eat half a slice of pecan pie. The panic starts to fade. The spiral stops. You start to trust. Trust feels safe. The reason why I want you to have an effortless relationship with food is because that's a safe, trusting feeling for your nervous system. And it's going to help you on your weight loss journey. It's going to help you in the short term by sending safe signals into your brain and body, so your body will uncircle the wagons and give you access to this stored fuel again. But as far as sustainability goes, it is an absolute game changer. It's only sustainable if you can sustain it. Hello. And you'll only be able to sustain it if you like it, if you like the way it feels, if you feel autonomous, if you feel empowered, if you feel self-determined. You have to extricate yourself from the clutches of diet programming. And that's what the brat's been trying to do this whole time. Like, yo, let's get out of here. Let pleasure be part of your plan, and then the brat will quieten down. Pleasure is health. Pleasure is nourishment. If your plan doesn't make space for pleasure, the brat's going to get up in your face. And she's going to find a way to demand pleasure. And that's when things get messy. So you build it in. This is what healing looks like. This is what metabolic safety feels like. Not just following a plan, but linking arms with your brat and your protector and your wounded and all those little archetypes, and leaning into some trust. Because most women I work with don't actually have a food problem. They have a trust problem. They don't trust themselves to stop. They don't trust their bodies to regulate. They don't trust their appetite to regulate. They don't trust their cravings to quieten. They don't trust that indulgence can fit inside a healthy life and a healthy body. They don't trust that they can have pecan pie and fit into their favorite sundress. But here's what I'll say. First of all, my hunch is you've never tried it. So you don't know what you don't know. How do you know it's not going to work? You've never tried it. When you do trust yourself, and I say this as somebody who's 15 years down this garden path, right? I've been working on this for 15 years. I have no fraught energy about my food decisions. My last meal on my beach vacation in Belize was a plate of pasta, a chocolate lava cake, and a whole ass bottle of red wine. And that was at 9 p.m., by the way, an hour before bed. And there's no residual concern. I didn't go for a run the next day to burn it off. I didn't have to adjust my macros. That's trust. I know it's impossible. It's actually impossible, and I've tried this a million times, to describe to women what it feels like to be on this side of this change. You can't even conceive of it. But if you start chipping away at it, you'll start to see glimmers. You'll start to trust yourself. You won't feel the need to rebel anymore. You won't sneak things anymore. You don't have to get away with it. There's no self-sabotage, because you're not trying to escape your life. You're living it. You're living in your body, living with food, celebration, joy, indulgence, treats, pleasure. and accepting it as a part of who you are, rather than trying to squish it down for how many more decades of your life? Are you going to try to harness some willpower? Are we going to keep beating our heads against this brick wall until we're 80, 90, 117? Not me. Well, here's a challenge for you. Can you make a self-honoring choice this week with food? Not to test your willpower, not to earn it with exercise, not to practice getting back on the wagon. All that language, we're deleting it from your vernacular, but simply to teach your body that food is not the enemy, that pleasure can be enjoyed, and that it's safe to do so. Let your brat come along for the ride. Let her choose something real fun for you. This is how you'll stop spiraling. This is how you'll make progress. This is how you'll sustain progress. And then this is how you'll achieve an effortless relationship with food for the next half of your life. I'd love to know what you think about this. If this conversation stirred something in you, if you're seeing these inner parts of yourself in a whole new way, I would love to hear about it. So, by the way, you can always email me, contact@eatsimple.ca. Let me know what you thought. You can share this episode, tag me on Instagram, eatsimpleerin, send me a DM, or just take a quiet moment to think about it. And then if you're ready to stop fighting yourself and start building a relationship with your body that feels like a partnership instead of a punishment, come work with me. You don't have to do this alone. I live for this because safety in your body, sustainable, enjoyable weight loss that lasts and feels nice isn't a destination. It's a practice. It's a practice. It's an embodiment practice, kind of like learning to play the violin or snowboarding or some other physical pursuit. Like you have to basically embody this and feel it and feel all the feelings of it. And I can show you how to do that and I can help you. So until next time, link arms with your brat because she's actually smarter than you think she is.